The crystal chandeliers cast a brittle, glittering light across the opulence of the Qin family banquet. The air, thick with the aroma of roasted duck and expensive perfume, felt suffocating to Lu Jingxing. She watched the glittering crowd, a sea of silk and diamonds, their laughter echoing hollowly in her ears. Each clink of champagne flutes felt like a tiny hammer blow against her carefully constructed composure. Her aunt, draped in jade and radiating a predatory smile, steered her towards a group of men, their eyes appraising, calculating. "Jingxing, dear," her aunt's voice dripped with false sweetness, a saccharine coating over the bitter pill of her intentions. "These gentlemen are very interested in the Lu family's latest ventures. You, being so close to the family, could be invaluable in facilitating some beneficial partnerships." Lu Jingxing's stomach churned. Beneficial for whom? Certainly not for her. She knew this charade. Another attempt to leverage her supposed connection to the Lu clan, another pawn in their endless game of financial desperation. She forced a smile, a brittle, fragile thing. Inside, a cold anger simmered. How long would she have to play this role? How long before she could finally break free from this gilded cage? One of the men, stout and radiating an aura of self-importance, stepped forward. He extended a hand, his eyes lingering a little too long on the curve of her neck. "Miss Lu," he began, his voice oily, "I've heard so much about your acumen." Acumen. A gilded word for her forced compliance, her silent endurance of their schemes. "Mr. Wang," she replied, her voice even, betraying none of the revulsion swirling within. "The pleasure is all mine." The conversation danced around veiled propositions, thinly disguised offers of financial support in exchange for her influence. Each word, each forced laugh, felt like a betrayal of herself. Her hand tightened around her champagne flute, the cold glass a small comfort against the burning resentment that threatened to consume her. Her mother joined the circle, her eyes gleaming with avarice. "Jingxing, darling, Mr. Wang here has some exciting proposals for the family. We're certain you can help bridge the gap between our families, can't you?" Lu Jingxing's jaw clenched. Bridge the gap. They wanted to use her as a human bridge over the chasm of their own financial mismanagement, their reckless gambling debts. She opened her mouth to refuse, to finally shatter this illusion of compliance, when a voice, calm yet resonant, cut through the air. "My wife's business affairs are my responsibility." The crowd parted, revealing Shuoyu, his presence radiating an almost palpable power. He moved with an effortless grace, his eyes, usually reserved, now burning with a quiet intensity. A hush fell over the room, the air crackling with sudden tension. The Qin family members froze, their carefully constructed facades crumbling. Lu Jingxing felt a jolt, a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. She hadn't expected him. He hadn't been due back from his overseas trip for another week. "Wife?" Mr. Wang sputtered, his face contorting in disbelief. "But Miss Lu is unmarried." "Her family," he gestured vaguely, his words trailing off under Shuoyu's unwavering gaze. "My marriage," Lu Jingxing said, her voice gaining strength, fueled by Shuoyu's presence, "can only be decided by me." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. Disbelief, confusion, a hint of scandalized amusement. She met their gazes unflinchingly. This was her moment. Her chance to finally reclaim her own narrative. Shuoyu reached her side, his hand finding hers, his touch a grounding force in the swirling chaos. "Mr. Wang," he addressed the stunned man, his voice laced with ice, "I assure you, I'm allergic to women. Other than my wife." He produced a document, handing it to Shenzi, his ever-efficient associate, who promptly distributed copies to the stunned guests. It was their marriage certificate, a stark, undeniable testament to their bond. The murmurs intensified, evolving into a shocked buzz. The Qin family members looked as if they'd swallowed flies. Her mother stammered, "Jingxing, what is the meaning of this?" "We had no idea." Lu Jingxing met her mother's gaze, her own eyes reflecting a newfound steel. "You thought I had nothing?" she asked, her voice soft yet carrying an undeniable weight. "You thought I was still the naive girl you could manipulate? I learned a long time ago to protect myself." The lawyer stepped forward, clarifying the legal implications of their marriage, effectively dismantling any claims the Qin family might have had on Lu Jingxing's supposed connections. The carefully orchestrated facade had crumbled, revealing the ugly truth of their greed and deception. As the reality of the situation sunk in, the guests began to disperse, whispering amongst themselves. The Qin family, their faces a mask of shocked disbelief and thwarted ambition, retreated, leaving Lu Jingxing and Shuoyu standing amidst the remnants of their elaborate scheme. The silence that descended felt heavy, pregnant with unspoken words. Lu Jingxing looked at Shuoyu, her heart swelling with a complex mix of gratitude and something akin to awe. He had not only saved her from their clutches but had done so with a quiet strength, a controlled power that left no room for doubt. He turned to her, his eyes softening as his gaze met hers. "I promised you a grand wedding," he said, his voice low and intimate, a stark contrast to the public declaration moments before. "One that the world would witness. One that would leave no doubt." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently caressing her cheeks. "A wedding befitting my wife, the woman who taught me the true meaning of strength." Lu Jingxing's carefully constructed walls crumbled, replaced by a wave of emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. She leaned into his touch, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken bond between them, a bond forged not only in love but in shared defiance against those who sought to control them. The glittering chandeliers above seemed to dim, their brilliance eclipsed by the quiet intensity of their shared gaze, a silent promise of a future built on their own terms. The opulent chandelier cast a shimmering, almost suffocating glow upon the banquet hall. Lu Jingxing felt its weight, a tangible pressure mirroring the suffocating expectations surrounding her. Crystal glasses chimed, the laughter of the city's elite echoing off the high ceilings, a hollow symphony to her ears. Her aunt's voice, sharp as shattered glass, still reverberated in her mind. 10 million. They dare to offer 10 million for me. The nausea, a familiar companion, tightened its grip on her stomach. She pressed her fingers against the cool glass of water, seeking a grounding sensation in the midst of the swirling chaos. The Qin family, like vultures circling their prey, continued their performance. Her mother, a mask of feigned concern plastered on her face, lamented Lu Jingxing's supposed aversion to marriage, painting her as a difficult, yet ultimately valuable, commodity. Each word, each carefully crafted sigh, grated on Lu Jingxing's nerves. "They see me as nothing more than a pawn." The thought, bitter and cold, settled deep within her. She took a shallow breath, fighting the urge to flee, to disappear into the anonymous crowd. Suddenly, the air shifted. A palpable hush fell over the room, the chattering voices dying down to a low murmur. Lu Jingxing looked up, her heart quickening its pace. At the entrance, a figure stood silhouetted against the bright lights. Shuoyu. He moved with an almost predatory grace, his presence commanding attention, drawing all eyes towards him. The subtle shift in the room's atmosphere spoke volumes. This wasn't merely an entrance, it was a declaration. He's here. The realization sent a ripple of unease through her, yet beneath it, a flicker of something else ignited. Hope, perhaps. Or something akin to it. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, swept across the room, finally settling on her. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met, and in that brief connection, Lu Jingxing saw a depth of emotion that sent a shiver down her spine. It was a look that spoke of possession, yes, but also of something far more profound. Protection. He reached her side with an effortless stride, his presence radiating a quiet power that silenced the whispers around them. The Qin family, caught mid-sentence, stared, their expressions shifting from calculated charm to bewildered confusion. Lu Jingxing felt a strange sense of detachment, as if observing the scene from a distance. This was Shuoyu's domain, a world of power and influence that was both foreign and strangely alluring. "Mr. Shuo," her aunt stammered, her voice losing its usual sharpness. The veneer of sophistication began to crack, revealing the grasping greed beneath. Shuoyu ignored her, his gaze fixed on Lu Jingxing. He reached out, his hand gently enveloping hers. The warmth of his touch sent a jolt through her, a stark contrast to the icy grip of her family's expectations. "Jingxing," he said, his voice low and resonant, a balm to her frayed nerves. He didn't elaborate, didn't need to. The single word, spoken with such unwavering certainty, was a declaration in itself. Her aunt, recovering from her initial shock, forced a brittle smile. "Mr. Shuo, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. We were just discussing Jingxing's future prospects." Shuoyu's gaze, now glacial, shifted to her aunt. "Is that so?" he asked, his voice laced with a dangerous undercurrent. He turned to address the room, his voice rising, cutting through the stunned silence. "The Qin family seems to be under the impression that they can negotiate Lu Jingxing's hand in marriage. They believe, it seems, that they can sell her." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Qin family's faces paled, their carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of Shuoyu's words. "Let me clarify," Shuoyu continued, his voice ringing with authority. "Lu Jingxing is my wife." The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the sharp intake of breath from the stunned onlookers. Lu Jingxing herself felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. He said it. He declared it to the world. He produced a document, handing it to a lawyer who had materialized at his side with the silent efficiency that spoke of meticulous planning. "The Shuo family's betrothal gift," he announced, his voice cutting through the whispers, "is 10 billion yuan. A sum, I believe, far exceeds anything the Qin family could have hoped for." The lawyer, with practiced ease, displayed the document, the sheer number of zeros on the check causing a collective gasp. The Qin family's greed, so blatant moments before, now seemed pathetic, almost comical. Shuoyu turned back to Lu Jingxing, his gaze softening. "Jingxing," he said, his voice now only for her, "I apologize for this unpleasantness. I should have handled this sooner." He squeezed her hand, a silent reassurance. Lu Jingxing, still reeling from the rapid turn of events, could only nod, her throat tight with emotion. He then addressed the room once more, his voice regaining its steely edge. "Furthermore," he stated, his gaze sweeping over the Qin family, "I have evidence of the Qin family's illegal activities, including the theft and attempted sale of family heirlooms." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I trust the authorities will be interested in these findings." Panic flashed across the faces of the Qin family. Their carefully crafted world was collapsing around them, their greed and deception laid bare for all to see. "Get this man out of here!" Lu Jingxing's mother shrieked, her voice raw with desperation. But no one moved. Shuoyu's presence, his power, held them all captive. He turned to Lu Jingxing, his eyes filled with a warmth that melted the ice around her heart. "Let's go home," he murmured, drawing her away from the wreckage of her family's ambitions. As they walked towards the exit, hand in hand, Lu Jingxing glanced back at the scene of chaos they were leaving behind. A strange sense of peace settled over her, a sense of liberation she had never thought possible. Outside, beneath the cool night sky, Shuoyu turned to her. "I promised you a wedding, Jingxing," he said, his voice soft, his eyes reflecting the city lights. "A real one. One that celebrates us, not your family's greed." Lu Jingxing looked at him, truly looked at him, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. A real wedding. The opulent chandelier cast a shimmering, almost mocking, light across the stunned faces of the Qin family. Lu Jingxing watched, a strange detachment settling over her like a shroud. Just moments ago, her aunt's shrill laughter had filled the banquet hall, her words dripping with false affection as she paraded Lu Jingxing before potential suitors like a prized pony. Now, that laughter had choked into a strangled gasp, her face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. Jingxing felt a flicker of something. Not quite satisfaction, not yet relief. Perhaps it was the quiet hum of vindication. Shuoyu stood beside her, his presence a solid, reassuring weight in the swirling chaos. He held her hand, his fingers interlaced with hers, a silent promise of protection. His gaze swept across the room, cool and unwavering, each glance a carefully aimed arrow piercing the carefully constructed facade of the Qin family's respectability. The Qin family, his voice resonated through the hall, cutting through the rising murmurs, has always coveted the Lu family property. His words were calm, measured, yet each syllable carried the weight of a judge's gavel. Jingxing's mother, her face now ashen, stammered a denial, her words thin and unconvincing. Shuoyu, what are you talking about? This is a misunderstanding. Jingxing watched her mother's performance with a chilling indifference. Years of manipulation and emotional blackmail had eroded any lingering affection. She knew the truth behind the carefully crafted mask of maternal concern. It was a truth woven from greed and resentment. A misunderstanding. Shuoyu's voice, though still controlled, held a dangerous edge. He gestured towards the lawyer standing beside him, a man with the sharp, predatory look of a hawk. My lawyer has documented evidence of the Qin family's systematic attempts to defraud Lu Jingxing of her inheritance. The murmurs in the room intensified, the whispers like a swarm of insects buzzing around the Qin family's crumbling facade. Jingxing felt a strange disconnect from it all, as though she were watching a play unfold on a distant stage. She had anticipated this moment, planned for it, yet now that it was here, it felt strangely unreal. The anger she had carried for so long, the simmering resentment, seemed to dissipate, replaced by a hollow emptiness. You stole those antique calligraphy and paintings. Shuoyu's voice, sharp as a knife, sliced through the air, each accusation a precise blow aimed at the heart of the Qin family's lies. He listed each transgression, each act of deceit, with a chilling precision. The stolen heirlooms, the forged documents, the embezzled funds, each revelation peeling away another layer of the Qin family's carefully constructed respectability. Shenzi, Shuoyu's associate, stood near the entrance, observing the unfolding drama with an almost clinical detachment. His presence was a silent testament to Shuoyu's power and influence, a reminder that this was not merely a family squabble, but a calculated dismantling of a corrupt system. He caught Jingxing's eye for a fleeting moment, a flicker of something akin to understanding passing between them. He knew, as she did, the cost of such battles, the emotional toll it exacted. The Qin family's denials grew increasingly frantic, their voices shrill and desperate against the tide of evidence. The guests, initially sympathetic to their plight, now shifted their gazes, their expressions ranging from disbelief to outright disgust. The social elite, always quick to distance themselves from scandal, began to subtly withdraw, creating a growing chasm of isolation around the Qin family. Qin Zhaosheng, Shuoyu's voice, now laced with steel, resonated through the hall, illegally raised hundreds of millions. This final revelation, the most damning of all, landed like a bombshell. The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. The whispers ceased, replaced by a stunned silence. Even Jingxing's mother seemed to shrink back, her defiance finally crumbling under the weight of Shuoyu's accusations. Jingxing closed her eyes for a moment, the sudden silence amplifying the frantic beating of her heart. She had imagined this moment countless times, envisioned the satisfaction she would feel at seeing her family's downfall. Yet, now that it was here, the victory felt hollow, the taste of it ashen in her mouth. When she opened her eyes, Shuoyu was looking at her, his gaze softening as it met hers. The steely facade he had presented to the world melted away, replaced by an expression of tenderness that sent an unexpected warmth spreading through her chest. He squeezed her hand, a silent reassurance. "Jingxing," he said, his voice low and intimate, meant only for her ears, "it's over now." She nodded, the word catching in her throat. The fight was over. She was free. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow, leaving her breathless. The years of manipulation, the constant fear, the suffocating weight of her family's expectations, it was all finally over. He turned back to the room, his voice regaining its authority. "As for my wife, Lu Jingxing, she has no part in this." His words were a clear demarcation, a public declaration of his allegiance. "She is, and always has been, innocent." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room, meeting the eyes of every guest. "And she is my wife." A collective gasp rippled through the room. The revelation of their marriage, kept secret until now, added another layer of shock to the already dramatic scene. Jingxing felt a blush rise to her cheeks, a strange mix of shyness and pride warming her. She had never imagined being publicly acknowledged, let alone defended, with such fierce protectiveness. Shuoyu turned to her, his eyes filled with a warmth that melted the last vestiges of her reserve. "Our wedding," he said, his voice a soft promise, "will be held soon. A grand celebration, befitting my wife." He smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that reached his eyes and touched something deep within her. It was a promise of a future free from the shadows of the past, a future filled with love and the quiet joy of belonging. The remnants of the Qin family's carefully constructed world lay shattered around them, the debris of their lies and deceit exposed for all to see. And in the midst of the wreckage, Lu Jingxing stood hand in hand with her husband, finally free to build a future of her own choosing. The car glided through the city, the neon lights blurring into streaks of color against the deepening twilight. Lu Jingxing stared out the window, the cityscape a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere of the Qin family banquet hall. Her mind replayed the events of the evening, each moment a sharp shard of memory. Shuoyu's decisive intervention, the stunned faces of her relatives, the lawyer's crisp, authoritative pronouncements, it was a whirlwind of emotions she was still struggling to process. A strange calm had settled over her now, a quiet exhaustion that ran deeper than mere tiredness. Beside her, Shuoyu sat in silence, his presence a solid, comforting weight in the confined space of the vehicle. She glanced at him, his profile etched against the passing streetlights, a subtle tension in his jaw the only outward sign of the turmoil that must have been churning within him. He had protected her, shielded her from the grasping claws of her family. But at what cost? The question lingered, unanswered. The car pulled into the driveway of their shared home, a modern, minimalist structure nestled amidst the sprawling metropolis. Stepping inside, the silence deepened, broken only by the soft click of the closing door. The air was still and cool, a stark difference from the stifling heat of the banquet hall. "I'll make some tea," Shuoyu said, his voice low and gentle, breaking the quiet tension. Lu Jingxing nodded, the simple act of agreement feeling like a monumental shift in their dynamic. As he moved towards the kitchen, she watched him, a flicker of warmth igniting within her chest. He had orchestrated everything, played the role of the indifferent husband to perfection, all to protect her. The realization sent a wave of complex emotions through her: gratitude, relief, and a burgeoning sense of trust that she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge until now. He returned with 2 steaming mugs, the aroma of jasmine filling the air. They sat in the living room, the silence no longer oppressive but companionable. "You married me to protect me," she said, the words barely a whisper, yet they hung heavy in the air between them. He met her gaze, his eyes dark and intense. "I married you because I wanted to," he replied, his voice soft yet firm, "protecting you is a given." His words resonated within her, a quiet affirmation of the unspoken bond that had grown between them. The distrust that had been a constant companion began to recede, replaced by a fragile hope. Later that night, after they had discussed the legal proceedings initiated against her family, Lu Jingxing found herself drawn to the kitchen. "I'll cook for you every day," she said, surprising herself with the spontaneous declaration. A soft smile played on Shuoyu's lips. "I look forward to it." The simple exchange held a weight of unspoken promises, a shared future painted in the quiet intimacy of their shared space. The next morning, they visited Lu Jingxing's grandmother. The elderly woman, frail but sharp-minded, listened intently as Lu Jingxing recounted the events of the banquet, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of anger and satisfaction. "They thought they could use you, Jingxing," she said, her voice trembling with indignation. "But they underestimated you, and they certainly underestimated Shuoyu." Lu Jingxing squeezed her grandmother's hand, a silent understanding passing between them. The Qin family's web of deceit had been unraveled, but the emotional scars remained. "I won't let them go," Lu Jingxing said, her voice quiet but resolute. Shuoyu placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We won't." The shared resolve solidified the bond between them, a united front against the forces that had sought to tear them apart. As the day progressed, the weight of the past began to lift. Lu Jingxing learned about her father's twin brother, a shadowy figure who had orchestrated the elaborate scheme to exploit her. The revelation added another layer of complexity to the already tangled family history, but it also brought a sense of closure. She finally understood the full extent of the manipulation that had shaped her life. With the truth laid bare, she felt a sense of liberation, a newfound strength to forge her own path. That evening, as the city lights twinkled outside their window, Shuoyu turned to Lu Jingxing, a gentle smile gracing his features. "We'll have a formal wedding," he said, his eyes filled with a warmth that melted the last vestiges of her reserve. "A real one, with all our friends and family, the kind you deserve." Tears welled up in Lu Jingxing's eyes, not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming emotion. She had always dreamed of a love that was true, a partnership built on trust and respect. With Shuoyu, she had found that and more. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "I'd like that very much." In the quiet intimacy of their shared space, amidst the soft glow of the city lights, they sealed their commitment, a promise of a future filled with love, trust, and the quiet joy of building a life together. The shadows of the past had finally receded, replaced by the radiant dawn of a new beginning. The soft glow of the setting sun painted the living room in hues of amber and rose. Dust motes danced in the golden light, illuminating the intricate patterns woven into the Persian rug. Lu Jingxing sat curled on the plush sofa, a book resting open but forgotten in her lap. Her gaze drifted towards the French doors that opened onto a balcony overlooking the city. The cityscape glittered below, a tapestry of lights against the darkening sky. A faint smile touched her lips. Just a few months ago, this life, this tranquility would have seemed an impossible dream. The oppressive weight of her family's expectations, the suffocating web of their manipulations, had felt like an inescapable prison. Now, breathing in the scent of jasmine from the garden below, she felt free. The click of the door handle broke her reverie. Shuoyu entered, shedding his suit jacket and loosening his tie with a sigh. He crossed the room, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet, and sat beside her, drawing her close. He smelled of the crisp autumn air and something uniquely his own, a subtle, comforting scent that had become synonymous with safety and home. Lu Jingxing leaned into his embrace, the tension melting from her shoulders. "Long day?" she murmured, her voice soft against his chest. "Not particularly," he replied, his voice a low rumble against her ear. His hand stroked her hair, a gentle, reassuring gesture. "Just finalizing a few things with the lawyers." His words brought a flicker of unease to her heart. The things he referred to were the ongoing legal proceedings against her family. The investigation into their fraudulent activities, their attempts to exploit her supposed wealth, was still underway. A part of her, a small, stubborn part, still felt a pang of guilt, a whisper of familial obligation. But then she remembered the years of emotional manipulation, the constant pressure, the suffocating lack of agency. Shuoyu's arm tightened around her, as if sensing her internal struggle. "It's all right, Xing'er," he whispered, using the affectionate nickname that only he used. "They made their choices. We're simply ensuring they face the consequences." She nodded, burying her face in his shoulder. The guilt hadn't entirely vanished, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of relief, of finally being protected. The Qin family's greed, their relentless pursuit of wealth and status, had cast a long shadow over her life. She had always felt like a pawn in their game, a tool to be used for their own advancement. Shuoyu's presence, his unwavering support, had shattered that illusion. He had seen her, truly seen her, beyond the facade of obedience and compliance that she had carefully constructed over the years. He had given her the courage to break free. "The invitations have been sent," Shuoyu said, breaking the silence. His voice held a hint of amusement. "I suspect we'll have quite a turnout." Lu Jingxing chuckled softly. Their initial, secret marriage had been a necessity, a swift move to protect her from her family's machinations. Now, they were planning a proper wedding, a grand celebration to announce their union to the world. The thought sent a shiver of anticipation down her spine. "Are you nervous?" she asked, tilting her head back to meet his gaze. His eyes, dark and intense, held a flicker of something that made her breath catch in her throat. Desire? Adoration? Perhaps a mixture of both. "Only about one thing," he replied, his voice a low murmur. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek. "Making sure everyone knows that you are mine." His words, possessive yet tender, sent a wave of heat through her. The possessiveness didn't frighten her, it felt right. After a lifetime of feeling like she belonged to no one, to everyone, the feeling of belonging to him, and him alone, was strangely liberating. Later, as they stood on the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle like scattered diamonds, Lu Jingxing thought back to the Qin family banquet. The memory was still vivid, the scene playing out in her mind like a macabre play. Her family's shocked faces, their sputtering indignation as Shuoyu had revealed their lies, their schemes. The lawyer, standing tall and impassive, presenting the evidence of their deceit. Shenzi, his expression unreadable, watching the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. And Shuoyu, the calm center of the storm, his voice unwavering as he declared her his wife, his protected. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the city's hum. "For everything." He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the city lights. "There's nothing to thank me for, Xing'er," he said softly. "I'll accompany Xing'er until I am old." His words, simple yet profound, resonated deep within her. It wasn't just a promise, it was a vow. A vow to protect her, to cherish her, to stand by her side, no matter what. The cool night air brushed against their faces as they stood in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined. The past, with all its shadows and uncertainties, felt distant and unreal. The present, filled with the warmth of his presence, the promise of their future, was all that mattered. "Our married life is very happy and sweet now," she murmured, the words a quiet affirmation of their newfound happiness. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He leaned down, his lips brushing against her forehead in a feather-light kiss. "It's only the beginning, Xing'er," he whispered. And in that moment, surrounded by the twinkling lights of the city, Lu Jingxing knew that he was right. Their journey together was just beginning. And she couldn't wait to see where it would lead.